Okay, perfect. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello and welcome to everyone. Thanks for joining the call today with Manny Martinez and myself. For those who don't know me, I'm Alan Chapman, and I'm absolutely delighted to have the pleasure today to run the call with Manny. And I only actually met Manny about, I think it was 3 months ago, Manny. I met you virtually, of course. And from day one, we built up a fantastic connection. We've had some great conversations over the last couple of months. And really, myself and Manny felt that it would add so much value today to share his story and some of his insights into leadership. So we'll come on to that in a second. But real pleasure and privilege for me personally, Manny, to have this discussion with you today. So thank you. In terms of Manny himself, I'll let Manny introduce his own story in a second, but very briefly, Manny had a 30-year career in the US military, Air Force, and through that time developed many leaders and grew organizations to reach their highest potential. And that's a passion that Manny's continued since he left the Air Force, and he's currently president of Relentless Leadership, LLC Crestcom in the United States. I think that's correct, Manny. So that's a brief bit in terms of Manny's background, I guess. But what really drew me to our conversations a few months ago, there's probably a number of things actually, but 4 things in particular that drew me to Manny as an individual. The first thing was his honesty. The second thing was his humility. His self-fun that he has. You'll see that in a second when we talk through it. A real sense of fun. But I guess as importantly, what underpins all of that, his knowledge, his experience of dealing with many teams in different situations, and his knowledge of leadership, which is what has brought us here today. So I think what we thought was, let's dive a little bit deeper into the content. Some of you may have seen Manny's blog on the Future You website. Some of you may not have. But when I read that for the first time, I was really inspired, I have to say, and I've read it a few times since. And today is really about delving in a little bit deeper to that, understanding some of the background to that content, and letting Manny, I guess, tell his story. So at the end, as always in these calls, we'll make some time for some questions and answers. So we'll signpost that when we come to that point. But really, Manny, I'd like to, firstly, a big warm welcome to you. From sunny Eastern Scotland all the way to the United States. Big warm welcome. And I'm going to hand over to you now just to share a little bit about your story, your journey. And I guess in terms of your blog was titled Arthritis, My Leadership Mentor. So over to you just to tell the guys a little bit about your story.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. And thank you so much for that warm introduction and for the kind words. And again, thank you to all of you for being here. It's really an honor. It's really a gift to have you here on this call. Yes, as Alan mentioned, I served in the military for 30 years, but I want to backtrack a little bit and tell you about my roots. I was born in Puerto Rico back in 1970. So this is my 50 years of being here on this earth, and I'm really excited. And when I was 12, my family and I moved to Florida, and it was my first opportunity to learn English. English was not my first language. In some ways, maybe I'm still learning it. And then when I turned 18, a week later, I entered the military. I went into the Air Force. My thought was, I'm going to spend about 4 years in the military, earn some money so I can go to college. I wanted to be independent and not be a burden on my mother, who was a single mother raising 3 kids. And as I served in the military, I got this itch. I got this bug, this feeling of I want to serve, that I want to serve something greater than myself. And there were so many wonderful people who poured of themselves so that I could be successful. 30 years later, I finished a military career at the top 1% of the enlisted military as a Chief Master Sergeant. And it was truly an honor and a privilege to serve at that level. When I arrived at Chief Master Sergeant, my thoughts were, I'm in the best position to pour into the lives of others as a way of being grateful for all the things that my predecessors poured into me. I think in leadership, none of us make it on our own. We need a support team. And I had a fantastic support team over 3 decades. And so that's what I do these days. And certainly what I was doing in the military is I poured into the lives of others so that they could become successful. It was a fantastic career. And as I left the military, I wanted to continue doing just that. How can I pour into the lives of my community, of our towns and cities where I live? And that led me to Crestcom. And Crestcom does that. We have a program that allows people to develop their leadership skills in an environment where we make it safe to do that. You know, sometimes in leadership, we're put and thrust into positions by virtue of you're in the right place at the right time, and we lack some of those skills. And that's what drove me to be part of Crestcom, because I wanted to help people in that journey as they grow to become better leaders. So that's a little bit about me. I am married. I have 2 kids. My wife and I, we met in 2001, and we've been married since 2004. And my daughter is a 21-year-old senior at Washington State University studying chemistry. My son is a high school sophomore. He's 15 years old at Olympia High School. And yes, I'm in Olympia, Washington, the Washington State on the West Coast. So many, many, many different hours for those of you who are over in Europe. So that's a little bit about me. It's, I don't know, sometimes when I think about looking back at my career, I just feel very privileged, and I'm very honored to have served, and I'm very honored to be here with you. Alan, you talked a little bit about arthritis in the blog. So if you don't mind, let me tell you a little bit about that. So I, when I turned 40, I thought I was in the best shape of my life. And I was physically. I was one of those CrossFit kings and people who really just dove right into fitness. And then one morning I woke up with this amazing pain on the back of my neck and my shoulder, and the pain wouldn't go away. And I spent a couple of months trying to mitigate that. Lo and behold, I have arthritis in 2 or 3 of my vertebrae in the back of my neck. And for the first couple of years or so, I struggled with that. I didn't know what to do with it. It would come and go, and would flare up. And eventually at work, when you're in the military specifically, when you are in pain, you hide it. You don't show that you're vulnerable. You don't show that perhaps you're not able to do the job. Even though people might know that you're not well, you don't talk about it. It's shameful. And if I was a 25-year military person with arthritis, people could say, well, this person's has been, can't keep up, can't do their job. But I instead, after a couple of years, decided that I wasn't going to hide that. And instead, what I did to mitigate the pain was to build a very rustic stand-up desk. Now, stand-up desks these days are very commonplace. You can buy all kinds of different types that sit on your desktop, and you can flip them up, flip them down, you lift them or you lower them. But in 2013, not so many of them. I took different pieces of the cubicle that I worked in. I worked in a big office with lots of different compartments and spaces. We didn't really have individual rooms. I restructured my entire desk to make it a stand-up desk. And at the beginning, people were ridiculing me, making fun of me. He's a stand-up kind of guy. Ha, 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 ha. But over time, people started coming over and asking me, hey, show me what you did. Because you see, I have this pain. Because you see, I'm not very comfortable when I sit at the office. Could you help me? And I would say, well, let me show you. Let me give you a tour of my desk. And I would say things like, when you walked into my office, I was standing up. How professional is that? And if I want to share something with you, I can just step out of the way and you can look on my computer screen, and it doesn't feel very awkward. I flipped the idea of taking a break upside down. Instead of let me stand up for 5 minutes, I've been sitting down for 3 hours. I say, I'm going to sit down for 5 minutes. I've been standing up for 3 hours. My body really needs to rest. Over time, I started helping people put together their own stand-up desks where I worked. We had an office of 60 2 years later, 20 people had stand-up desks and people were happier, they were healthier. I don't believe that would have happened unless I would have taken the step to go, I'm not going to longer hide my pain. I'm not going to longer hide my illness, if you will. Yet through that journey of arthritis, I learned three things. And the first one is that leaders, we have to be flexible and we have to be adaptable. Sometimes the things that worked yesterday no longer work today. I could no longer be a half marathon runner. I could no longer be a CrossFit king, but it didn't necessarily meant that I didn't have to, that I had to stop exercising. I could still work out, find the things that work for me now so I could stay physically fit. Sometimes the things that we do at work today make sense, but down the road may no longer make sense. And as leaders, we have to be able to evaluate that and go, what is it that we need to do to be adaptable and flexible? The second thing that arthritis taught me is that leaders will be ridiculed, especially with bringing up new ideas. Has that ever happened to you? You had a great idea, a great concept in the beginning. People thought you were absolutely just mad, gone crazy. But then over time, they thought, hey, there's something here. There's something there. Welcome to leadership is what I have to say about that. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And yet you have to have the fortitude to be able to say, I believe in this. I believe this passionately. And I know that there is benefit and goodness here for everybody. And over time, some people will be able to share in your vision. Some people will not. That's also part of leadership. And then the third thing that I learned is that faking strength is not a hallmark of leadership. People tend to gravitate and emulate and look up to people whom they can connect with at a human level. If I would have never showed that I had a physical problem, I would have never been able to connect with so many people in my office at a very human level. I would have never been able to help them with their issues. They were hiding theirs too. And I didn't know that. So as leaders, when we connect with people at a human level, they connect with us too. And a wonderful way of doing that is through showing our vulnerability. We're not invincible. We're always learning, we're always growing as leaders. When people understand that, they can make a human connection with you. And that's extremely important when you're leading people. The last thing that I wanted when I was in the military is to have people feel that somehow they were intimidated by my presence. Wow, you've been around the military for a very long time. I've just began serving. It's kind of scary talking to you. I didn't want that. I wanted them to be able to connect with me. And so I worked very hard to connect with them, find the things that they're interested in, find the things that you can find common ground with, and they will come along with you. So those were the things that I learned through arthritis. And I'm happy to say I still have arthritis 10 years later. I have not kicked the habit, and I don't think that I will. Yet I believe that through this experience, I've become a better person, and yet I still have so much to learn. And I'm excited about that.
Fantastic.
That's my arthritis story, Alan.
Thank you, Manny. No, thank you. And like I said at the start, I think your humility is certainly a big strength. So thank you for sharing and being honest around your background. So you talked about 3 of the leadership lessons that you took from arthritis. I'm sure there were probably more, but that was your top 3. But if you were to really bring it in, what do you believe is the essence of being a great leader?
Yeah, great question. I believe that as leaders, I always think it's not about me. It is not about me. Some leaders pretend that great leaders have, a corner office and big windows and a parking spot. It's not about that. It's about the people whom we serve. It's about a service to a cause that's greater than yourself. And that might be different from where you work, where you live, whom you're serving. Yet it's the best leaders, at least the leaders that I've worked with throughout my career, always made their people the priority. I always think about that when you're in a leadership position, you are really honored and bestowed a wonderful privilege. The perk, the benefit, if you will, is that you've been placed there. It's not about what's due to me, what's coming to me. No, you've already been given that gift. So by pouring into the lives of others, that's where I believe is the true essence of leadership.
Perfect. Thanks, Manny. And I think, again, one of the things when we talked for the very first time, I know we've had a few conversations since then, but what struck me was obviously your fundamental belief in terms of leadership, but actually from a personal point of view. I mean, the first 20 minutes you come across very personable, so you can understand why anyone new that comes into the army would embrace that. So what would you say it was about you personally that has given you the success over the years and has made such an impression on others, if you wouldn't mind sharing that with the group?
Thank you, Alan. I talked about it briefly. I just had many people who believed in me. They saw potential and they took time to coach me, to mentor me, to listen to me. I didn't do this on my own. I'm really the kind of the summary of many people, many leaders throughout my career that shared some insights, shared some wisdom. I had a conversation last week on my 50th birthday. One of my great mentors that I worked with 25 years ago. 25 years ago, he sent me a text on Messenger and he said, "Happy birthday." I decided I'm just going to call him right now. So I picked up the phone and I tried to call him on Messenger, and he still has one of those flip phones. So Messenger was not working on his flip phone. So then he said, "Hey, I think it's you calling me." And then I said, "What's your phone number? I'll call you." And the first word out of his mouth were, "Manny, I'm so proud of you." 25 years later, his first words, "Manny, I'm so proud of you." He took time to invest in my life so that I could be successful. And it was very hard for me to just fight back tears and thinking, no. You were the one who poured into my life. And I told him I would have never achieved what I achieved if not for people like you. I think that's what's really done it. It's really been just people pouring into my life.
Wonderful, thanks, Manny. And I think the other thing, I mean, I'm personally, I'm a big believer in leaving, I guess, a bit personal brand. I mean, we all work for different companies, and each company's got a brand, but we've got our own personal brand. And when you move from team to team, it's about what legacy you leave behind. And I guess that's a great example of 25 years on, that's that person's memory of you, and actually it's your memory of them as well, which I think is so important. So that kind of leads me on to the next question around teams, because again, we all come from different backgrounds in the call, different industries, but fundamentally, I'm sure we've all worked with different types of personalities, different character traits of people, different motivations of people. And I guess working in the Air Force, it was critical to get alignment in your team because you were going into some real, serious situations. So what was your skill set? How did you deal with those different personalities, those different character traits, those different motivations to create a sense of alignment across your teams?
Sure. That's a really good question. And I guess I'm somewhat biased. I like people. I like hanging out with people. I like talking with people. Perhaps I have this affinity to just be open. I guess I'll just start with just a short story. When I was growing up in Puerto Rico, there was a neighbor that lived 2 doors down from me, Don Anibal. He knew everybody in my neighborhood. Everybody. He knew their names. He knew about their families. He knew if there was something happening at their home or they needed help with something. He would come to my house every week, usually on a weeknight, and he would do this kind of crazy whistle. And everybody would come out of their houses and they'd sit in front of my yard and people would talk and get to know each other. What I learned from him was to be approachable, approachability, being able to get to know people and know them a little bit more than just what they do at work. I took that same concept and I brought that into the military. When you say, for example, as military people, we tend to once in a while deploy for military contingencies, in different parts of the world. And they bring different people that you've never met. And now they're asked, work together to perform a mission. That's a challenge. As a senior leader, I just took that same Don Anibal approach to talk to people, get to know my teammates, get to know my employees, find out what interests them, what makes them tick, what they don't like, and making a human connection with them. And you have to do it very quickly. When you do that, you begin to build trust with them. You have to have trust in your teams to be successful. And certainly in the military, the ultimate level of trust is I trust the person on my left and to my right with my life, because that might potentially happen. I just took it to just get to know people individually, a little bit about them, beyond the job, beyond the skills. And that really helped me connect with teams. I'll tell you, my last deployment, I had different backgrounds in different industries working in one organization. So I had people that were security police, people who were in technology like IT type services, individuals who worked in civil engineering, construction, and they were all in one group, logistics teams. They were all in one organization. And I was their senior enlisted leader. I'm the grandfather of the bunch. I just got to know them at a different level by getting to connect with them individually. Down the hallway where I worked was another team, and they were all the aviators, the pilots, the navigators, the people who maintain the aircrafts, the flight engineers. I used to go by their offices too and just chit chat with them. Hey, how are you? How's the job going? What can I do for you? I'm in your support team role. What kind of things can I offer? After a while, they thought, even though they had their own enlisted leader, the pilots and the navigators and all that, they had their own enlisted leader, they thought it was me. I just went over there just to get to know them, and they thought I was their individual leader. Maybe I just have an affinity just to talk to people. Maybe I talk too much. I don't know. But what does that say about the person who was their leader? Where was that person? What was going on between that team and their leader that there was no connection? And yet they felt such a strong connection to me, they thought I was their team leader. Yeah. So get to know people at a very human level, get to know a little bit about what their interests are beyond the job.
Super. And I think that's a bit about the legacy as well, isn't it? That you leave behind, how people remember you as well, in terms of how you approach them. So one of the other things, Manny, some people may have seen the recent call that Andy did with Professor Damien Hughes. Some people might listen to the High Performing podcast, but Damien talks about the messy middle when things don't quite go to plan, and ups and downs in life. We all have them. I guess in business and in life, it would be great to get positive, fantastic feedback constantly. But as we know, life's not like that all the time. So there's times when we get difficult feedback to take. So what was the one piece, if you can remember, what was the one piece of difficult feedback you've had to take over your career, Manny, that you received? And it was tough to hear, but a bit like the arthritis, you've taken away, you've digested it, and you've used it to your advantage going forward in the rest of your life.
Yeah. Sometimes what's your strength might be seen also as perhaps your area that you need to improve. My wanting to get to know people, be friendly, understand them, sometimes in the military it was seen as me being soft. You're too easy on your employees. You let the customers get away with things. And maybe some situations they might have been right. But what I learned through that is that in the end, I cannot be the other person. I have to be true to myself. And it was good for me to hear, hey, maybe you're being a little soft on people. Maybe you need to hold their feet to the fire a little more. I was able to think about that and go, okay, in which areas can I improve accountability with my team if there's an issue here? Now, doesn't mean that I completely start doing things their way. And that was the hard part. Sometimes I would try to go, maybe I need to be more like so-and-so. And that meant that I wasn't being true to myself. And people can see that. People can sense when you're not necessarily being yourself. You're playing the role of someone else. It's very easy to catch. In the end, I didn't want to compromise my approachability and my ability to connect with people. And at the same time, it was good feedback to go, sometimes you got to make sure that you don't miss when you have to take a moment to talk to people separately and go, hey, I noticed this about you. There might be an issue here. What's going on? What's happening? Help me understand how I can help you, because these are the things that I've noticed. Those can still be very friendly conversations, and yet conversations that might be a little difficult and still need to be had. And it took me a little while to figure out how to do that. And because in the beginning, I was inexperienced and I wanted to go, that person does that really well. I'm going to try it their way. And a lot of times their way would just fail. I needed to find my own voice through that. And maybe in some way I'm still learning that.
Yeah, perfect. And I think, again, that's one thing for those that have been on Future You calls recently. Andy in particular talks about the learning copy from people, and add your own 10% as well. Your own personality, your own brand. So, but it's obviously served you well, Manny. So thanks for sharing. So, time for one last question, I think. Then, if you're okay, I can hand over to any questions and answers. So, you said you've just turned 50, so congratulations, first of all. If you were to go back 30 years to your 20-year-old self, so a 20-year-old Manny Martinez, what advice would you give yourself? Would you do anything differently, do you think?
Yes, I would have told my 20-year-old self, shave your head. You look good bald. No. Actually, no. I would tell Manny at 20, it's okay to take risks. It's okay to take risks. Doesn't mean that you, again, do something completely crazy, but it's okay to take small risks. Some people, and I sometimes still struggle with this, we have this ability to fear things, fear of the unknown. And a lot of times that fear is manifested in things that have never happened, never occurred, and probably never will. And when I was younger, that kept me perhaps from doing things I wanted to do. So my 20-year-old self, I would say, it's okay to take risks. These days, I think, things always work out in the end. Things always have a way for us to learn a positive lesson from perhaps a negative experience. I'm also a person of faith. I always think, God always takes care of things in the end. It always seems to work out. So 20-year-old Manny, take a few more risks. You'll be fine. And it's okay even to lose your hair while you're taking those risks.
Yeah, I know that feeling, Manny. So, and I think one of the other things I wrote down from the blog as well, which links to that just briefly, is you talked about 2 chief mistakes. Leaders make mistakes, so it's having the humility and the honesty to realize that no matter what position you're in life, you'll make mistakes, and also you don't know everything. You don't have the answers to everything. So I took that learning as well from you. So thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Alan.
So it's been a really quick half an hour, actually. So hopefully everyone in the call has had the opportunity to take 1 or 2 things, take some notes, a few things to take away. But as always, we want to use some of the time to open up to you guys. If you've any questions for Manny. So as always, in the true tradition, stick your hand up, come off mute, or just shout out, whatever's going to work best for you. So Eric, you've come off mute. I can see that. So off you go. Hi, Eric.
Hey, good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly. Thanks.
All right. So first of all, Manny, I can hear the servant leadership. When you talk about servant leadership, I can hear your faith in there, and I really subscribe to that. I think I wrote this in the exchange online, but I have had the Air Force as my customer. I work for Lockheed Martin, a big defense contractor in the United States. And for many years, I had the United States Air Force as my customer. And for many years after that, I had NASA as my customer. And there's a huge cultural difference between the Air Force and NASA. And suffice to say, the Air Force is a much better customer than NASA. The Air Force has this growth, make change, trust your experts kind of make things happen and move along kind of mentality. And NASA has a very, let's not make change, let's protect my turf, it's a civil servant mentality, as opposed to a Air Force get stuff done, we're in war kind of decision-making mentality. An adage that I heard a long time ago was, when the Air Force colonel makes a decision, everyone gets in line. And when the NASA program manager makes a decision, that's when the debate starts. So I'm wondering, and I have pounded my head against the NASA civil servant mentality for many years. And did you ever run up against a civil servant mentality? And I'm saying that in well, I'll just use that term, even though it might be a little offensive. And what did you do? How did you get around it? Did you have any advice? Because I think I'm still going to face that.
Yes.
How would you approach somebody who's not willing to really be change-minded?
Yeah, that's a great question, Eric. Yeah, and thank you. I understand what you're saying. When I first came to my organization, my last military organization, it had a civil servant mentality of, we hold the status quo, we don't ruffle too many feathers, we don't make too many waves, and if the bigger bosses aren't necessarily bothering us, we're doing all right. And what we found was, when decisions are always being made from the top, and that organization had pretty much kind of given up its responsibility to make decisions at their level, people become very complacent. They become in this kind of, I need to hold my own space, I need to preserve my job, my position, my role. And my boss and I, we flipped that around and said, no, people are empowered, and we need to empower them to do their jobs. I can't do it all by myself, because if that's the case, then I'll just get rid of all of them and I'll just do every single job. So what we did is that we started doing exactly that. We started empowering people at the right level with the things that we were asking them to do. Give them the tools to do it, because sometimes they lacked the tools. Got rid of a lot of the bureaucracy and red tape. There were policies that were in effect that the top leadership didn't even follow, but they signed on saying, these are our policies. So we gave people, once again, the opportunity to go, I have, and I am in charge of my career and of my people. Now, we did have some people who didn't quite go along with that. And so we needed to open up those conversations and have those discussions with them. And sometimes we were able to get some people to go, okay, I'm understanding where you're going. And so we did more follow-up and more conversations. And then they were being the productive people we were hoping them to become. Some other people did not. And so what happened with that was they moved on to other positions. Some left the military, or, we had some civil service in that same role. They moved on. But I think the thing that really created the most energy and drive was that we said, we're going to change the culture, and we're going to walk the walk, talk the talk. And then we're going to have conversations about what that means, so that other people can get on board with that. And then the few people who won't, we'll talk to those people directly. And we had some wins. And then we also had some situations where they moved on. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Manny. Thanks for the question, Eric, as well. So anyway, I'll just scan the gallery. Anyone else got a question? Lisa, are you off mute? Do you want to ask a question? Hi, Lisa.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, Manny, thank you so much. I've made a whole page of notes there. There's I love everything that you've talked about. There's loads that you've talked about in terms of your leadership style that really resonates, and I really believe in myself. So thank you very much for that. One of the things that I think we're all always learning as leaders, and one of the biggest learning that myself and a lot of the leaders in our organisation are still on the journey to learn at the moment, is how to lead in this hybrid world. So, you know, leading as a virtual leader, sometimes in the office. What would be your biggest piece of advice around that point, Manny?
It's a great question. I think many of us are still kind of figuring it out. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, there are some things that we can bring from what we already know into the virtual space, into the perhaps I'm not seeing you personally every single day and being able to touch you in that way. And great leaders are great listeners. And to be able to listen, we got to be able to communicate. Sometimes we think of communication as the words that I spew out or the email that I sent out. Very often, the best communication that we can give as a leader is our presence and a listening ear. We're gonna have to work harder than ever before during this period to be present for our people. If that means making a phone call, hey, how are you? I'm just thinking of you, just to check in, see how you're doing, how you're feeling, how's your family. Some teams are doing a recurring Zoom call where everybody gets on the call and they do something for fun, just to break up the monotony of just putting information out and get the job done. Because most people want to do a good job, but they also want to know that they are valued. They want to know that what they do adds value and gives value to the organization, to a customer, to themselves. That's where I believe the communication is at best, when we are communicating with our people, giving them time and giving them the presence. And that gives them a sense of value, a sense of purpose. Lisa, if you call me up at any time, because I'm used to talking to you, I'm always going to be available to you. And being available to them is so important, because then they know, yes, you truly care about me. You care about what's going on in my life. And let's face it, since we can't see them, it's hard for us to know. I'm not saying it's easy. It is not. You're going to have to take the extra time to be present and find the ways to connect with them and find out what's going on in their lives. It's going to take some work. And I know you're probably doing already great things, but I would say we were doing really well during the first couple of months in the springtime when COVID was first happening. There was a lot of empathy and communication and discussion. I'm not so sure that's happening right now. And the conversations have shifted as well, because people's situations have changed. Be mindful of that as you're going out and talking to your people and talking to your teams.
Manny, thank you. Very helpful.
Great.
Thanks
for the question, Lisa. And thanks, Manny. I think, Manny, if you're okay, you might have time for a couple more. If there's any on the go. Anyone? Gary, have you got a question?
I have, Alan. Thank you.
Off you go.
Hi, Manny.
Hi.
Thanks very much. Manny, I found it absolutely fascinating when you were talking about, being yourself. I'm a firm believer in that, in terms of bringing myself to work every day and getting to know people. And, I always describe it, I know Andy talks about this as well, of relationships being the foundation of everything that we do in business. There's a famous quote, which I believe was Judy Garland, the US American actress, who said, always be a first-rate version of yourself instead of a second-rate version of anybody else. I find in the work that I do that at times I am being asked to almost not be a better version of myself, being asked to do things in a way that doesn't sit naturally with me. And it would be put to you at times of, this is an area of development for you. So I guess I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how you turn that around and how you turn that back to what we've talked about today, which is to be that first-rate version of yourself.
Yes. Well, a couple of things. Thank you. That's a great question. And it's certainly a struggle for many of us. And as leaders, we're never really static. we're always growing and learning, you may find that over time, those things can kind of come back. It's like, hey, I figured out how to do this. And then a little bit later, here we go again, as you're changing roles or changing jobs or changing situations. I believe that results and our actions are things that speak, right? Actions speak louder than words. Very often when I found myself in situations where I wasn't necessarily mirroring or acting or behaving the way other people thought, it was the actions and the results that spoke. And in some ways, I was able to show other people that this is who I am, and this is how I really connect with people. Perfect example, in the military, at least the US military, most of us are known for using foul language. It's just part of the vernacular, part of the vocabulary. I didn't subscribe to that. I was the chief who didn't use swear words. And then one day in a meeting, I used one, and the whole world found out about it. And I'm glad, because it caught people's attention for a second. It's like, oh, wow, he was really upset about something, which is another thing. I never got upset. I would never yell and scream to get to people. Hey, this is how I take care of, my issues with people who are my employees. I yell and scream. I never would yell. I was in another meeting and I got upset about something, and they could see the anger boiling in me, although I didn't yell and scream. But by the time I got back to my office on the opposite end of the building, my entire front office knew that I got angry. So sometimes when you're building your own individuality, not everybody's going to agree with it. But I think that's what makes it magical, that we are able to say, you know what, there's a different way. And maybe in some ways there's a little better way and a better approach. And I'm going to show through my actions how I can do this. And these are the results. And when people start seeing that, wow, things are really good here, your team is on board, you are bringing in results, they're gonna be on board with you.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Great. Thanks for the question, Guy. Thanks, Manny. Have we got time for one quick last one, Manny, do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just looking across. Anyone off mute? Anyone got a question?
Paul. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
Paul.
Hi, Manny.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Manny. Thanks for your time today, and Alan for the invite. It's been really informative. A bit like thinking back to Damien Hughes' talk the other day, and he talked a lot about his 3 non-negotiables, and I think you maybe hinted at about swearing. I was just wondering if you had 3 non-negotiables when it comes to a team and what they are.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. When Damien Hughes was talking about that, my first thought was the 3 non-negotiables. Immediately, I thought the Air Force 3 core values, which is integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. And that is what we see as our values in the Air Force. And I still live that to this day. I still think about when I'm in a situation, when I'm doing my job, am I doing it with integrity? Basically, am I doing the right thing if and when nobody's looking? And then the sense of service before self. It's not service in spite of yourself, but the things that I do and the life that I lead, how is it serving others? How is it giving back that gift for the gifts that have been given me? And then excellence. Am I committed to excellence in the things that I do every single day? And those are very challenging things. Sometimes it's hard for us to maintain that level, that high level of sticking to those core values. But those were the first things that I thought about that. But now, since the military, though, I've got a couple of other things. And the first one, and the one that I really, really focus on is self-discipline. Because it's hard sometimes to do the things that we need to do. And when things are easy, when life is great, when money's coming in and our job is great and all our friends love us, it's easy to do work. It's easy to do things. It's easy to have relationships with people. But when things are tough, when things are hard, it's discipline. that's going to help you get through. So how are you disciplined physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, which Matthew Kelly talks about? You know, Andy Feld talks about the 4M routine, and I'm a firm believer in the 4M routine because it gives me and grounds me in self-discipline. Because there are moments when I wake up in the morning and I don't want to get up and go exercise, but then, you know, discipline says non-negotiable, get out there and do it. Yeah, great question.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Manny. Thanks, Paul. Guys, I'm sure there's maybe a few other questions going around, but I'm very conscious of time. So a couple of thank yous first from me. So I guess the first one, thank you for everyone for joining today. It's been without you guys, then the call doesn't happen. So thanks for joining. And the second thank you, obviously, Manny, for coming on the call, taking up some of your time to do this. And as always, as I said, we've had a number of conversations on a one-to-one basis over the last few months. And today is no different. I've 45 minutes with yourself, and I'm inspired again. So thank you very much for your time. I don't know if there's any final words, Manny, from you before we close off.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for the honor and privilege to do this with you. And I just want you to have a safe holiday season with family, with friends. I know some will be on a screen or some will be near you, but I just wish you all the best in your success.
Great. Thank you very much,
so
Manny.
much.
Thank you. So guys, same for me. Thank you for today. Obviously, all the best the rest of this month and into 2021. So thanks, everyone. Speak soon. Cheers.
Thank you.